Getting hit multiple times coming out of that bike section. More drivers coming to blows.
Greetings, race fans, and buckle up for tonight's presentation of Sim Racers Group Formula 4 on SMB. JR Gregory here with you on the call, along with my partner Kennen Miller and our producer Racing Ron Maunz. And week 7, as we cross the halfway point of the season, takes us across the Atlantic to Ochersleben. I knew I was going to say that wrong. Ochersleben. How hard can that be? Germany. The motorsport arena Ochersleben was opened in 1997, becoming Germany's 4th permanent road course. And since then, it has hosted about every European racing series you can think of. Not even going to go through them all, but it includes open wheel, GT, and motorcycle racing. Is current host to DTM, NASCAR Europe, and the Sidecar World Championship. Yeah, that is the thing. Today's configuration, 2.3 miles, 3.7 clicks, and 14 corners. A record of 115.050 was set by a Lola A1 GP car, if you remember those back in 2011. And Kennen, with rain in the forecast, these drivers are going to have their work cut out for them, especially on the notorious lap 1, turn 1 here at Ochersleben.
Yeah, JR, they've got their hands full this week coming here to the Motorsport Arena, Ochersleben. We'll see in some of the camera shots, a lot of the curbing from previous storm before practice started has really left a lot of the curbs filled with puddles, and certainly made it a challenge so far for all the drivers really throughout this practice. They are looking at possibly up to a 30% chance of rain during the actual race time. We don't see anything on the radar yet, so we'll have to keep an eye on what storms may pop up. But the track is deemed to be lightly wet, but there's some really insane puddles at a lot of the apexes of these corners. And you'll see as we're riding along with Adam Duvall right now, everybody's kind of having to take a little bit of an outside line. You see all the puddle on the right, and that's where you'd really like to be. And even the puddles on the left can catch the rear end and send you spinning. So it's really going to take a much different line than the optimal line a lot of the drivers practice throughout the week getting ready for the race. And I think it's going to present a lot of challenges up and down throughout the field.
Yeah, and that mostly dry track has all of these drivers on slicks right now, with the exception of Ken Estep, and he's about 6 seconds off of the pace right now. So those treaded tires not working for Ken, but the drivers are going to be keeping an eye on the horizon and hopefully keeping an eye on the radar as well. And Ken and I jumped out here earlier this afternoon in a public practice server that is for F4, so they do follow the mixed schedule, and there was a little drizzle going, and I'll tell you what, this track has a pretty severe wet line. The track around the apexes of these corners is polished like glass. You got to stay way off the normal line. Obviously can't touch any of the painted surfaces. In dry weather, you're out on the green stuff pretty much on every corner. You can't get anywhere near that or anywhere near even the red and white, and you see the big puddling there across the apex of that corner. So rain could definitely throw these drivers a curveball. This would normally be a pretty nice high-speed track for these F4 cars. It could really take advantage of that, all that mechanical grip, and take advantage of that aero. But things are a little bit iffy right now, and I know that you'll keep an eye on that radar for us and keep us apprised of the weather. But could be a wild one out here today.
Yeah, it's really going to be interesting to see how the track really develops. I don't think you're going to have any choice. You'll have to start the race on slicks, unless between a session change the rain is really just coming down and looks like it's not stopping. Maybe then you could. The way it is right now, you're going to have to start on slicks. It's really going to come down to the line, and like you said, you have to drive so extremely off of the normal apex. It's going to make passing even more difficult than it already is at this track. It's a very flat track. It's a lot of high speed corners. You can't really go through side by side. A lot of them really only have one line, and when you're having to take somewhat of a rain line through a lot of these apexes, it's going to really make the passing quite difficult.
Yeah, it should be an interesting one. And let's go ahead as practice winding down here, Ron, and take a look at those season championship points. As I said, we are halfway through the season. So what you're seeing there are the points for 6 rounds, and a couple interesting things. We'll just run through them. There's a Novice from Hirsch, from Lau, from Duvall, from Chia is your top 5. Will be followed by Brashear, Geitenmeyer, Posada, and Van Wagner. And I'll let you read the rest of that on your own. But interestingly, Novice there in P1 is winless. He has a couple podiums, has not won a race yet, but his consistency and kind of steady driving here through the first 6 weeks has put him on the top, and 11 different drivers have claimed podium spots throughout the first 6 weeks. And I would note that Edgar Lau, who is at the top of the practice timing right now, is the only repeat winner, having won the last 2. So, but those points very, very tight, as you saw, a bunch of drivers kind of lingering around in the 50s. So this one wide open. And speaking of Lau, there he's taking that Technicolor dream car for a spin through the kitty litter there. And I was looking at the track a little earlier, and there is a ton of sand out on the track from people going off. And as I said, a lot of motorcycle racing here, and whenever there's bikes, there is a lot of that kitty litter, and we're certainly seeing it here.
Yeah, the track's really getting quite dirty, isn't it? It's kind of crazy how it's shown on the graphics so heavily, but I guess with the water and so much drivers going off, it is really a lot of gravel through some of the corners. We'll see if it affects the handling. Sometimes just seeing that on the track and the graphics, it kind of makes you hesitant driving through it. Don't think it really makes too much of an effect to the car, but they've got their hands full already with a pretty slick track. And you see Edgar Lau leaving it all on the line, pushing a lot of puddles. I think it's not a bad strategy, actually. Drive through the puddles now while you've got some time in practice. I know it's almost over, but maybe they should have been a little more strategic trying to hit the puddles in practice, and maybe have cleaned them up a little better.
Yeah, to true that. And Lau definitely beating that thing to death, as you see him going across, violating my advice there, going across the line, across the paint, and onto the green stuff sideways, manages to keep it together. But practice winding down now. That is going to end the session. We're going to jump now into a 15-minute open qualifier with, it looks like, we've got 22 cars signed up for the session, so quite a few cars out there. Looks like the sun is out, so that will be good news for people who want to get good track position. As Kennen said, might be kind of tough to get passes done here, so this qualifying session going to be pretty important as you see those drivers scramble out to get going here on quali.
Yeah, and that's a really busy pit lane. We usually see them kind of come out into a big pack, but that seemed very important. Drivers going 3 wide trying to get to the exit, find a decent little position to get themselves up it. I think you have to take advantage of the sun. The track's actually almost too cold for the optimal temperatures this car really wants. So if you got a little bit of sunlight, you may be able to find a little bit of time there. And we see Walker Fultz already struggling just on the outlap. Shows just cold tires, slick track. It's sometimes the car just has absolutely no grip when you get on the brakes. So see him reset and get back going after it again here momentarily.
Yeah, and I was concerned about Fultz. He was fast and loose with a blend line coming out of the pits there. It's kind of a tough pit exit, kind of a first gear, really abrupt right-hand corner off of the pit lane onto the track, and looked to me like he crossed that blend line prior to the cone, so he might have pulled a black flag for that, regardless of his little off there. In fact, that off might have been nuts. I got to tow and start over. And taking a look now at Alex Schwartz, who's yeah, and here we go. And yes, this is intentional. We're going to show Schwartz rolling out of the pit so that you can see this pit exit. No pit stop in this one, so not super critical, but just interesting how difficult it is to get out on the track and get moving here. So pit limiter is off here, so you can go as fast as you want, but doesn't really benefit you too much. You got to go really slow right here. And just when you thought this was bad enough, look at this right-hander onto the track. Blah! First gear. And then you got a blend right here. You saw Fultz cross this blend line. Let's see if Schwartz does a little better. And Schwartz trying to find the loud pedal there. Looks like he's finally accelerating. And look at Guyton. Guyton's throwing down some pace early. And we'll take a look at that radar for you and see if we're going to see any precip during this session. But track looking fairly dry right now. And these drivers know if it starts to drizzle, now might be their chance here early to put a heater down before the conditions out there change.
Yeah, it looks like it's really on the borderline of when we may expect rain. The radar does look clear, though, so hopefully the drivers will get to have a continuing drawing track through now through the end of the race session, but anything really can happen. But I think you're right. A lot of drivers are very quick to get out there, put a lap time on the board. Everybody currently working their first hot lap and hopefully crossing the line soon. I think Edgar Lau may be the first one to put it on the line.
Yeah, and watching Gayton here, and I guess that might be his out lap. Oh no, we are getting some lap times in, so it's Novice and Guyton right now so far have gotten some lap times down. There is Duvall getting one in. Ammon or Amon, somebody let me know, please. How Isaac prefers his name pronounced, but he gets a time up as well. So boy, these outlaps, Kennen, have taken some time. Already 3.5 minutes burned and only 4 drivers with times on the clock. So we might be getting a little preview here of the difficulties that our drivers tonight are going to have keeping the car clean and keeping it on the track.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been looking over at some of our other monitors here in the studio, and it's definitely been a lot of self spins. I've seen a couple cars get into a little bit of traffic. Walker Foots, he got himself back out and ended up having a good little lap going and ran into a little bit of traffic in front of him around corner 8 and 9. So it's going to be interesting. It's a very full field. It's a relatively smaller track, so it's going to be pretty heavy on traffic no matter where you are. It's just a matter of timing it up, getting yourself a good clean lap, and just keeping the car underneath you. This racetrack gets so flat, and normally you're used to driving at such high speed. You really want to carry that speed, and right now the track and the conditions just is not allowing for it. So kind of have to find a way to temper yourself back down a little bit and find a good lap time.
Yeah, and looking at James McDonald has a provisional P3 going right now. I wanted to show you that Bumblebee livery there in that number 22 car of McDonald. So McDonald lingering around there, and the top 4 or 5 cars separated by what looks like the top 5 are separated by 1 second, and that just kind of highlights Kennen, the difficulty of driving in the rain. And if you haven't done it a lot, you could have a million laps out here at this track, be very fast out here, and have to completely relearn it to drive on the rain line, avoid the puddles, and stay off of the curbs. This is one of those tracks where you take huge bites of the curbs at the apex and on the exit on pretty much every corner, and that is all off the table. So you have to find a whole new path around Ochersleben here, and it takes some time to get it figured out.
Yeah, and let's throw in the fact that they're all having a race on slicks. It's a very interesting combination of the track conditions, because where the water really is on the inside of these curbs, it's very thick. It's not just like it's a thin layer of water throughout the track. So you're having to run the dries just to keep the speed where you can, where it is dry. But if you get yourself off and touch water, you're generally hydroplaning. It's a very big puddle you're slapping into, and see Ken Instep just very slightly touching it, and it just wants to take that left front with it. So that's what's going to really make a challenge. I think all throughout the race, the way these puddles look, I don't really see them going away before the checkered flag drops. So it's something they'll have to manage and just not make a mistake touching them, but also getting as close as you can, because that's really where the speed is.
Yeah, and time starting to come down a little bit as drivers get some heat and their tires start to burn off some of that fuel. And Edgar Lau has jumped to the top with a 125.8, our first driver to break that 126 barrier. So up top, it is Lau from Navis, from Guyton, from Chia, from Greg Meyer. And that's kind of usual suspects in the pointy end of the field. A lot of those names in the top of the points race. So those drivers showing up here to get some work done, and looking good so far in quali. And Lau has put down a pretty good heater with a comfortable almost half-second gap behind to Novice. And we'll take a look again at Lau blinking in and out of existence in that beautiful multicolor F4 car.
Yeah, Edgar Lau, quickest in practice, the only driver to run in the 125s, and puts it right back in the 125s for qualifying. He's certainly one to look out for when you get the wet tracks and conditions like this. The one thing it really can do is create some separation all throughout the field. There's just so much variance in the kind of line you're trying to run and how you handle the grip compared to such an optimal line. So expect Edgar Lau to be challenging up front throughout the entire race.
Yeah, and what a spread in times. Those intervals there don't look too bad. Those are the gaps but from one car to the next car. But if you look at the total times, it looks like I've got about 7 seconds dividing our P1 driver, Lau from St. Nathan, who's currently bringing up the rear in P18. So only a minute and a half lap. That is a pretty significant spread in lap times. And this could be one of those rare instances, Ken, Kennen, where back markers could end up playing a role down the stretch. And I'm probably getting ahead of myself a little bit. It still could rain here, and that could certainly shake up the proceedings once the race gets underway. We talked a little bit about tires, and pretty impractical to change tires here with such a short lap. It takes a huge bite of time, so you kind of have to choose one before you grid up and commit to it, which we saw bite a couple drivers at a race earlier on this season at Monza.
Yeah, we did. Monza really bit them, and I'm sure that's sitting in the back of all the drivers' minds right now. It's they kind of got burnt thinking they were going to get stuck, and it was actually raining at the start of that race. So I have a feeling we'll see a lot of drivers risk the dry, and if conditions get that bad, then you may just have to deal with making an adjustment. But 20-minute race, if the rain just starts, it's not too big of a sim time difference between and there. Wow, really big hydroplane by James McDonald. Just throws the car completely out of a loop. If he's going through getting past in that area, that's going to be some pretty bad context. So it's going to be a challenge all throughout. So we'll just kind of have to keep in tune with it. I don't think anybody's really set themselves at the front, because there is always that risk of one mistake, one spin out, and that may be all it takes to find yourself out of the lead and unable to get it back.
Yeah, there definitely could be some car-on-car violence in this one. And remember, folks, this is a developmental league here for Sim Racers Group, so damage is off with a premium on seat time. They don't want these cars taking flatbeds back to the pits and having people's races end early. So damage is off. They can hit each other, hit the barriers, and still continue. That's one of the bright sides here. But I would not be at all surprised to see some contact in this one, as boof, you'll see a car get fixed right there magically off the barrier. That front wing will get put back on, although that driver took a tow there. Maybe should have continued with his hot tires. And oof, there's some more contact right there. So yeah, could be a rough one out here at Kennen for sure.
Yeah, I think this is proving to be maybe one of the more challenging tracks the drivers have really been to. You see David Hirsch leaving everything out there. I don't know if that's an off track or not. We'll see what his time goes for. And looks like it didn't. Oh, no, it did count. Puts him up into 7th. So that's a huge jump by David Hirsch. Gets himself into 7th just behind James McDonald. So I don't know. We're starting to see some drivers find the lap times. The tire temperature, you're right, is absolutely key. I think that the track is so cold and the weather is not getting any warmer, even with the sun out, that you're going to have to wait for the tires to warm up. It's going to probably take a lap or two longer than you're used to. And then you can really kind of try and let it rip and find the best time.
Yeah, I think we're seeing some of these drivers picking up on their confidence. It's the moisture on the track is quite intimidating and a learning experience for some of these folks. So you just kind of have to find your pace, find where you can drive. And, the water isn't lava. You can dip into it occasionally, but you don't want to have a tire in the water on the loaded side of the car, under braking or under power. And that's something that these drivers are going to be thinking about. But it is still Edgar Lau up front. Aaron Van Wagner has moved up into P2, followed by Navas and Diego Posada. And all of those drivers are covered by about 0.7 of a second. So time's starting to stack up a little bit up front. Looks like my top 9 drivers covered by 1 second. So folks getting in their rhythm here, finding their lines, finding some pace, and only a couple of laps remaining. They'll probably get 2 or 3 more. So if they got something, it's smoke them if you got them. If you got something going, time to light it up and see what you can do here.
Yeah, this is pretty much time to show we're riding on board with David Hirsch there. It looked like he put together a pretty clean lap, but was unable to best his best time there. So looked like he maybe just a little bit too wide in a couple corners, but overall a pretty good lap. This is certainly going to be a race where consistency will be key. You can't find yourself in any mix-ups. It's obviously going to be a very massive rush getting down into turn 1, trying to get the whole shot, but you just got to make sure you keep it clean and the 4 wheels pointed the right way the whole 20 minutes. And I think you got a good chance to come out with a decent finish here. I think we'll probably see quite a bit of drivers have a little bit of issue. I'm sure Ron Maunz will be going crazy in the control room, flipping back and forth between some different cars. But you keep it going straight, I think we'll see consistency play out as the real winner today.
Yeah, our producer, Ron, definitely has his finger hovering over the slow motion carnage button. He loves those body panels flying over the fence. So be ready for some of that. I'm sure we're going to be seeing some of that. But yeah, you're right, Kennen. This is going to be one of those races. We see it week in and week out where drivers are rewarded for just keeping it clean, being consistent, and avoiding trouble. And that is going to be multiplied on this track. And we'll have a couple drivers in mind that just kind of are good at staying frosty, keeping their heads down and keeping it on the track. And we see those drivers moving up, and some of those drivers might get a little bonus action today by keeping it a little more cautious here at Ochersleben. It could be a messy one.
Yeah, and we're looking at some of the drivers' times at the top, like Jose Navas. He found half a second worth of speed between practice and qualifying. Edgar Loud still at the top of the board, ran a 10th faster. So a lot of the drivers are finding a lot more time. I think the track's getting a little better. They're getting a little more comfortable with driving that kind of awkward wet line. So I don't think Edgar Lau's really got this one in the bag outright. There's going to be a challenge with some pretty good speed from the top 4 or 5 drivers.
Yeah, and the pressure on him, it's always pressure driving at the front. If he gets off the line clean and leads through the first couple of corners, it's additional pressure to keep it clean and be consistent with no one to follow and pressure from behind. So all the pressure going to be on Lau. Can he take 3 in a row is what he's going to try to do. If these times hold on, he's going to be doing that off of the pole. And with only about 30 seconds left, Lau, Van Wagner, McDonald, Naves, Guyton, Meyer, Posada, Hirsch, Duvall, and Ryan Chia are your top 10. And they'll probably have a couple more cars. Got a bunch of cars out there as the timer ticks down. Looks like that number 2 car might just squeak across the line and get another lap. I think they will. And that's Isaac Amon. I think he was probably going to be the last lapper around to get a qualifying time in. So the way qualifying works here, if you cross start finish before that clock hits 15, you get to finish whatever lap that you're on. So still plenty of cars out there, plenty of drivers trying to improve their lot in life. And Kennen, how many times have we seen ridiculous heaters right at this moment at the very end of qualifying, people really hanging everything out and moving way up in the standings at the end?
Yeah, really, it's just your final shot. It's your bring the steering wheel home or get on the pole type of attempt. And you just kind of watch some drivers. They managed to pull off some crazy comebacks in lap times. So we'll have to see if anything happens there. You see Isaac Amon had a little bit of a difficult lap, so he's going to be finished where he is on the board. I don't know if he put a lap in.
Yeah, no help there for Amon, I don't believe. And here comes Hyde in the 93. See if she's able to improve her 128, 110. And not quite a couple tenths off of her fast lap. And getting down to the last couple of cars, the number 2 car still out there. That is Amon crossing. And no help for Amon. And in the 15, that is going to be David Hirsch. Did he manage to move? And he did. Well, I'm not sure if he moved, actually. He did beat his prior fast lap and finds himself in P5. May have snuck past Guyton there. So qualifying completed here. No rain in the forecast. No rain during that. So, well, I should correct that. There is rain in the forecast. Radar looks good, though, as we settle into our grid here. We'll have the starting grid for you here in just a second. And when we grid up, we'll take one more peek at that radar, see if it indicates any rain coming in. But looks like we're going to get a dry one here today.
Yeah, it looks like everything's staying out of the way so far. So we'll see if anything magically flips with the session change, a little forward progress in time. But kind of looking forward to the race. It'll be interesting. Jose Navas qualified 4th. I'll be surprised to see what kind of start he chooses. He's obviously Mr. Consistency, and you do tend to see him sometimes drop back a position or 2 on the start. I wonder with these kind of conditions if he doesn't try to make a push forward. Just with the risk of losing track position can be so difficult to regain. So it'll be interesting to see there, and it'll be interesting to see if Edgar Lau is able to get off to a good start and just manage the competition of Aaron Van Wagner and James McDonald. I think they'll certainly have the speed going into this race.
Yeah, and McDonald owes Lau one from last week. McDonald off the pole. Lau smoked him off the start into turn one and then went on to win that one. McDonald kicking himself after. So McDonald may be able to get a little payback here, but here is your starting grid. It is Edgar Lau lined up next to Aaron Van Wagner in the front row. Then it's James McDonald next to Jose Navas behind them. Hirsch and Jacob Guyton. Greg Meyer and Diego Posada will line up in row 4. Then Adam Duvall and Ryan Chia rounding out the top 10. Then it's Alex Schwartz next to Thomas Brashear. Walker Foltz will line up next to Embriette Hyde in 13 and 14. Then it is Ken Glasser next to Sabura Vase. Tyler Hagan next to Ken Estep. Isaac Amon next to Samudio. And Cy Nathan next to Michael Wynn there in row 11. And as the time ticks down, looks like we're going to have the start forced here in about 40 seconds, and that is the unmistakable car of Edgar Lau there. You see kind of in the center of your screen. So he will be slightly disadvantaged here, Kennen, into turn 1. And a touring car driver said on the air that he wanted to meet the designer of turn 1 and give him a beating because of all the incidents here. But here we go. And Lau gets a pretty good start. It's not a lot of shuffling so far. Lau is not going to cover off from McDonald, though, or I guess that's Van Wagner peeking down the inside. Van Wagner taking a little peek there on McDonald. McDonald gets through, though. McDonald is going to move up one position off of that start. So it's Lau from McDonald from Van Wagner. Not a lot of movement elsewhere in the field. Looks like Meyer and Guyton dicing there as we enter the middle part of the lap. Looks like Foltz moved up a couple. Vase as well, but a very, very clean start and very good sign for this one, Kennen.
Yeah, absolutely. All the drivers keeping it really nice and clean, kind of really feathering the pedal to not have too much of an issue. Huge splash there. Greg Meyer, you see going through some of the puddles. Thankfully, we don't see any rain on the radar, so the track is getting better. I think some of these puddles are starting to dry up. You see the drivers feeling a little more confident in being able to use them, but single file all through now as they're rounding through 8 and 9 and headed towards the backstretch. It's off to a good start, and Edgar Lau with a fantastic job getting himself going.
Yeah, Lau driving off here early. He's got about a half-second gap to McDonald. McDonald doing pretty well. As there, as you say, Lau go a little bit wide there, getting a little camera shy, getting in the kitty litter, and lost a little bit of that advantage. Van Wagner catching up with McDonald a little bit there as well. And look at Greg Meyer. He's pushed his way up 2 positions into the top 5. So Meyer getting his work done, making things happen. That is a view back from Meyer's car. That's Hirsch behind and Guyton behind him. And we may see some dives here, Kennen, into turn 1. Very tough place to make a pass because you got to go right from turn 1, that left-hander, 90-degree left-hander, into a very tough kind of mini carousel right-hander. So doable to make a pass there, but you got to be very, very sharp, or you might not get to celebrate your pass. And speaking of camera shy, there goes Meyer after all that work he did to gain those 2 positions. Now he's got to sit there in the grass, watch the field stream by, and Meyer goes from P5 to DFL in it. Oh my goodness, straight to the border for Meyer. We're going to get a replay of it right here. And just a little bit of over rotation there. And he may have been early on the throttle. There's a couple of those carousel type corners, Kennen, where you want to get on the throttle as early as possible, but still requires some patience. You can't end up looping it. And Meyer bitten right there, and he is DFLing it in P22.
Yeah, it's a shame to see. He had such a good start, but just a little too much speed, I think, carried through the corner. I don't know if he touched the gas a little too early or may have just let off the brakes a little too quick and just sent the weight of that car from the rear going around. So tough to see. He's only 3 seconds behind 21st of Tyler Hagan, so he puts together a good remaining 17 minutes. He can maybe recover himself a few points here today, but really bad break. It looked like he was maybe going to be a contender for the top 5.
Yeah, and a tip of the hat to these SRG F4 drivers tackling this track in very, very difficult conditions. Got off the line very clean, very clean first couple of laps here. And these guys and gals are looking fantastic out there. And Edgar Lau starting to stretch on McDonald a little bit. I was about to tip my hat to McDonald as well, being able to hang on to Lau. And oh my goodness, there is somebody turning. That is Brashear, looks like, got a little sideways, and we'll take another look at that. He may have gotten back on the throttle instead of holding his brakes there and driven into one of the other cars. Let's take a look. Here is Brashear, and did he have a little help here? And nope, just maybe getting into the throttle a little bit early. Oof, and rolls right into the race line. He's going to get called to the principal's office over that one. But thankfully, as we said, no damage, so both cars continue.
Yeah, I'm surprised that the opening part of this race, turn 3, has proven to be so tricky. I really would have expected it to be run more in turns 8 and 9, where you're carrying so much more speed. It's a little bit of a tighter corner, but so far turn 3 has bitten a couple drivers and really damaged their race. So looking off the nose of Saurabh Vase here, and he's trying to make a move by onto the front straightaway, but looks like he'll settle still in 11th, but as you can see, he's got 4 or 5 good opportunities to pass here. It's just only a quarter into the race so far. There's still plenty of time to go.
And Ron, something has happened to Jose Navas. Our championship leader was running in P4 all the way down to P12, and not sure what happened to Navas. Maybe we can find that, but that has serious championship implications. You see him there in the kitty litter, and maybe we can back that up just a little bit and see how he ended up there. And here he is. That is Navas in that number 4 car. And where are we? Not exactly sure. And Navas getting off into the paint. Oh my goodness. And I was going to say that, Kennen, as the track dries, the car feels better. You're going faster. Your confidence is building, but you still have to be cautious as you take a little bit larger bites out of those puddles. On every lap, you can take a little bit more, but not too much more, as Navas is learning right there. And Navas's race takes a turn for the worse in a hurry.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Well, we've definitely shown some areas that are starting to look a lot better in the middle of the corners. That doesn't mean there aren't still some spots that these cars and their tires haven't really touched and maybe helped clean off some of the water, especially on the outside of the curbings. It seems to puddle up really badly, and that, I think, is kind of what got Jose Navas there. It was kind of thankful it wasn't a long spin. He was able to get himself back going, so he's got an opportunity to still put himself in a decent finish, but certainly a big setback for his race. He was off to a very good start as well, and James McDonald still just kind of watching Edgar Lau pull away a little bit, and there's a tough move, and there's Walker Fultz is off into the tires. So I think Walker just locked it up a little bit and just kind of straight off you go. That's sort of how this track is treating the drivers right now.
Yeah, Fultz overcooking that entry into turn 1. So easy to do because it's not just turn 1 you got to worry about. You got to get the car on track to get through turn 2 pretty much immediately right there. So we'll watch Fultz right here. And yeah, cuts. Oof. Yeah, those anti-cut curbs. And the cars like this are punished by running over those sausage curbs, Kennen, and Fultz taking a ride there.
Yeah, it just seemed like too much speed, and then the car just wouldn't want to react to him and just decided to keep going straight. So pretty tough. He also did a good job kind of bouncing off of the curbs. As we talk about, the damage isn't affected, so you really just want to minimize as much time as you're off the track in that situation, and didn't get himself caught up where he's having to turn around or anything. So I think overall he was able to kind of do some good damage control there as well.
Yeah, and riding along with Adam Duvall here now, coming down that pit straight into turn 1. That's Posada ahead of him, and Duvall and Posada well familiar with one another. They've been in some epic battles over the seasons here in SRG F4, and both of them looking very, very smooth. That is P5 and P6, so really showing you how to put together a good trip through that turn 1 and turn 2 complex. Here we are in that turn 3 that's been causing problems for people, and there goes James McDonald, and he has gone wide into the grass, and the wheels falling off of his race, and Edgar Lau is loving what he's seeing on his relative. That is a 5.5 second gap now back to P2. Lau on his way to winning 3 in a row, and really he is the only person who can prevent that from happening at this point, Kennen.
Yeah, we just see it again. Turn 3 just bites another car, a little bit different in James McDonald's case. They were the very close, almost taking out Aaron Van Wagner there. I'm sure Van Wagner was really gripping the wheel a little tight trying to get by, but he kind of found himself in a little bit of more trouble on the exit of the corner as opposed to the middle of the corner. I think he just got himself a little too low on exit, found himself a little bit in the slick stuff and around the rear went.
Yeah, that turn 3 is tough, and it's so inviting. Its constant radius has a good amount of banking to it, so you feel like you should have some grip there. And again, it's just kind of patience on the throttle and keeping your hands steady. If you make a small correction while putting the throttle down, the car can just snap there. And you see McDonald just getting a smooch of water there on the inside. And like I said, it's okay to take little nibbles of that water as the track slowly dries, but you got to take small ones and ease into those wet areas as the race goes on. And if you take too much, there's a pretty heavy price that can be paid.
Yeah, and especially a corner like turn 3, it's got that banking to it, like you said. The car's really well loaded there, and the rear end just kind of wants to slide out like it's an oval racing car. So that's really tough, and it's kind of amazing that corner has really been the one to have taken out so many drivers in today's race.
Yeah, and the sky's darkening a little bit here, and here is Eamon, and I think he is the second driver to take a little bit too much of green on the exit right there, and high risk, high reward. Yeah, it widens the radius of your corner, lets you get a little bit more exit speed, but can also upset the car and send it off the track, as you saw right there. And I kind of like this little section right here, Kennen. I'm not sure how much time you've spent out here at Ochersleben, but I think that's 11 and 12. There's a couple interesting chicanes on the track. That's one of them. It's a fun one when you hit it well. And riding along with Schwartz right now out of turn 14 onto the pit straight. That one is the Zeppelin curva. And to my knowledge, you should always be cautious around German Zeppelins. I don't know what the basis of that is, but here is Schwartz looking forward at Brashear, and all over him right now. He's got that gap down to about 4/10.
Yeah, we'll see if he makes a move going into 3 here. It's proven Tetris today, and you see he gets right up on the rear bumper, gets a pretty nice exit there. So Thomas Brashear is kind of having to hang on a little bit. Alex Schwartz really wants that position, and just not quite close enough there yet to get the fight. But like you said, and then we got Ryan Chia is off. 7th place Ryan Chia is off, gets it back going. Maybe only loses a position there, possibly 2. And there's Thomas Brashear having a little bit of issue in the same corner. So drivers are really kind of struggling at the moment. It's really mixed up and down throughout the field, and we're only halfway through this race.
Yeah, and our drivers that are up in the championship. Oh, and again, that same spot. I think that's where Novice went off. And Brashear has a little sympathetic spin in the same spot and makes contact. Who was that in the number 10? That was Schwartz. So all kinds of problems happening right there. And Kennen, our championship leaders, we've seen a couple cars out of the top 5 spin off and have problems. So our championship leaders being treated horribly by this track. And Brashear has got Embriette Hyde right here. Let's see if he tries a move on the inside here down into turn 1. And Hyde is going to leave that one open, but takes away the apex of turn 2. Hyde frosty when she's under attack, but Brashear hangs in there and pushes it through. But good, respectful driving by both drivers, and good defense by Hyde, not giving up on that one.
Yeah, it really did a good job defending it. Brashear was able to just kind of pull over the crossover. That first corner, it's such a long thing, and here's Embriette Hyde with a good run out of 3. So she's actually looking back inside going into 4 and 5, and has to check up a little bit early, as we've seen a lot of drivers have a tough spot there. And there's another driver off. Jose Navas again off in the same section. So he's certainly not having a good day. Our points leader, and Edgar Lau has actually doubled his lead in the last 2 or 3 laps. He's almost up to a 10-second lead. He's certainly going to be the biggest competitor to Jose Navas in this championship race. And today has just not been the day for him. So hopefully he can recover, maybe get some decent points overall, but not the race he wanted to have by any means.
Yeah, Navas out of the kitty litter, and pretty significant cut of the course there, maybe looking at a slowdown. And here is a little battle. Who are we looking at here? That is Vase, Meyer, and Fulch there in a battle for P12. So a little train formed up behind Fulch, about half a second covering those three cars. A couple trains. Well, we got Chia from McDonald, from Schwartz for P6. We got Fulch from Vase, from Meyer from P12. And that's where most of the action is at this point, with about 6 minutes remaining.
Yeah, this is a pretty good little three-car battle here. Greg Meyer was showing some speed on the back half of the lap. He had to kind of concede it through turn 1 there, but we've got ourselves a decent little run. We'll have to see who comes out of top of this.
And Kennen, I hate to ask, but I got to ask you to check the radar again. It's looking awful dark right there as you see Meyer slip it through on Vase. So now Meyer looking ahead at Fultz, and you see him with a little wiggle there, headed toward that deadly exit curb where we've seen Chia Navas and a couple other people go off. So Meyer flirting with that one, but you can see Meyer wanting to get some work done here. It's a recovery drive for him, of course. He's down 6 positions, and time is running out to make something out of that. And up front, of course, and that's somebody pulling over. Vase might be having a problem. Looks like a mechanical problem, maybe with his rig. Something's going on with Vase, and he is going to pull over and take a tow, looks like. But with 5 minutes remaining up front, it is Lau from Van Wagner from Hirsch, and Lau has built up a gaudy interval of about 12 seconds.
Yeah, Edgar Lau has really proven to have the perfect handle on this track and shouldn't have to worry about any more weather. The radar is clear. 5 minutes remaining. I don't see anything really popping up that can be that extravagant at this point in the race. So he's just got to make sure he puts some good lap times in. If he did have a spin out, I think he'd have the time to recover that he's built up, obviously, depending on how bad it was. But he just needs to keep the car under him. There's no need to push it. He's very much managed this race well and really took it to everybody in the field today.
Yeah, he really has. No one's really near him. Van Wagner in P2 is about 0.6 off of the pace by Lau, although I would note that David Hirsch is only about 0.1 off of Lau's fastest lap at a 1:25.9. So Hirsch has the pace, qualified in P5, moved up 2. But at this point, you see that interval, folks, 17 seconds but from Hirsch up to Lau. And Hirsch probably wishes he could have qualified a little bit better, could have given Lau a run for his money. But as it is, Lau running away, just needs to keep it on the track, as you said. And frankly, Kennen, he could probably bounce it off the Armco a couple times and still come across in P1. That gap is so huge.
Yeah, and he's just put another second or two on there in Van Wagner. I think you're seeing a lot of the drivers up front are starting to get complacent. There's no need to really push it. Everybody's kind of separated a few seconds between themselves, and obviously Edgar Lau with the massive advantage up front. So you can kind of play it a little more conservative. Don't risk running it over the curb and spinning out, and be able to manage this thing home and get a good finish.
Yeah, and here is E-Step coming up behind Cy Nathan, and E-Step still racing, and that's one of the beautiful things about these Sim Racers group races. There are races up and down the grid, and folks will continue to race like they're racing for P1, and E-Step gets it through on Nathan. Very tidy move as somebody off in the dirt there. I couldn't quite tell who that was. And I'll take a look now at Lau, and here is the one wild card. Lau hitting lap traffic here. And hopefully this driver is going to lift, get out of Lau's way, but probably only 2 more laps for Lau, maybe 3. But Lau looking really good right now with a 15-second gap.
Yeah, he's just absolutely blitzing the field today. This has really been total domination and just top of the class performance by Edgar Lau. We really wondered who was going to be able to contest Jose Navas at the top. He's certainly been Mr. Consistency so far and why he has such a dominant points lead. But Edgar Lau is starting to come on and really take a hold of this series. This will be his 3rd win in a row, and I believe after next week's race, we'll be able to kind of start seeing the points picture with the inclusion of the drop weeks. So that'll really give us a clear picture of how things settle out. Certainly this will be one that will have to be Jose Navas's drop week. I think this will be his worst finish by far all season. So it'll be kind of interesting seeing how this playoff picture kind of shapes up. I think we've got a little bit more of a battle on our hands than we think.
Yeah, I think that was Schwartz on taking another trip into the grass right here. He pulls out right in front of Meyer, and I know that Hyde is loving what she is seeing right now. She'd been reeling in Meyer quite steadily there, and the Schwartz, after going off, pulled out right in front of Meyer, and Hyde has that gap ahead of her down to about 0.5. And I said early that there were a few drivers on this grid that were frosty, kept out of trouble, and always had things come to them. And Hyde is definitely one of those drivers. She has moved up 2 positions, and there goes Schwartz backwards into the grass, and you see the re-entry that I'm talking about. He finds himself on the exit of that corner right as Meyer approaches. And that back to Meyer and Schwartz, and McDonald is in there. Not sure. Oh, so McDonald had another off as Hyde gains another position. So she is now up 3 after McDonald had some other kind of incident. Looks like the white flag, Kennen, is in the air now. So things looking good for Lau. All he's got to do is get it back around. And man, oh man, that's a good chunk of a lap as you see Lau working his way through one of the kind of cool chicane complexes here at Ochersleben and making his way around. Edgar Lau has positioned himself to win 3 in a row. There have been a lot of different podium winners up front so far in the first 6 weeks. Lau was the first one to win twice. He won 2 in a row. This is going to make it 3 as Lau absolutely dominant here, not bothered at all by these conditions, and he is going to give this track a whole lot of love as he comes out of that Zeppelin corner on to the pit straight. It is Edgar Lau by a mile, 16 seconds, and he'll have Van Wagner, Hirsch, Duvall come on behind him, and there is a fight still going on here. That is a fight for P5. It's Posada from Navas, from Bashir, from Chia, and all those cars covered by about half a second. All of a sudden, a huge race breaks out here for the last step on the, we'll call it the P5 diem. And as those cars come through the Zeppelin corner right there, no change in positions, but there was some fighting there on the white flag lap of a couple of those drivers trying to make things happen. Brashear had moved up 5 already and wanted a little bit more. Duvall also ahead of that group had picked up 5 positions to finish in P4. So definitely some movers and shakers in both directions as we watch Lau on his cool down lap, absolutely dominant, and we'll have the final results for you here in just a moment.
Yeah, that was a pretty good scrap there for the finish. I was expecting maybe a few position changes there, but Jose Navas actually with a really good recovery after his couple of mistakes getting into a P6. So really did a good job of managing the best that he could throughout the race. I know he'll wish that he had not had those mistakes, could have finished much, much better. But also just an absolutely dominant performance by Edgar Lau. That's a really phenomenal run that he had today, and we'll have to see if he kind of carries that on going into the next final 5 weeks now.
Yeah, and you got what might have been for Meyer. He was charging his way up into the top 5, had something going. His fast lap, a 125.8. So one of a handful of drivers under 126. Meyer had an opportunity here to make something happen, but easy come, easy go, especially when weather gets involved, as it definitely did here. And I think Ron has those final results for us, and we'll have those on the screen momentarily. And bang, there they are. Edgar Lau, 3 in a row, and takes the win by 16 seconds from Aaron Van Wagner. Then David Hirsch will round out your podium. Then it's Adam Duvall and Diego Posada rounding out the top 5. Jose Navas, Thomas Brashear, Ryan Chia, Alex Schwartz, and Greg Meyer will round out your top 10. And tip of the hat again to Duvall. He's up 5 to land there in P4. Then it's Embriette Hyde in P11. James McDonald on a recovery drive from a couple of spins. Rough one for McDonald after running P2 early. Finishes in P12. Then it's Jacob Guyton. Walter Foltz, saw him off in the kitty litter a few times. Rudy Samudio, Ken Glasser, Isaac Amon, and Ken Estep comes across in 18th. And then we have Cy Nathan, Bays, Huynh, and Hagen all off the lead lap by the intervals that you see there on the timing tower. So we'll take a quick peek out into the green room here. And speak of the devil, we were just talking about Embriette Hyde, and she stopped by to chat with us, finishing P11 and up 3. And Embriette, as you always do, you kind of avoided the flaming barrels out there, had some pretty good scraps going on. I think you were defending against Meyer there for a little bit, and pretty good drive put in by you. So what'd you think of the race tonight in Ochersleben?
I always like it when it's a little wet because I do less bad than other people, if that makes sense. And I think it's because generally I tend to drive under the limit anyway. So I'm kind of used to already being there. And so my differential between good and bad is not so great in the wet. And I tend to do better when it's a little wet and slippy out there. So I'm happy with how it went. Like you said, I avoided some chaos in the front and somehow managed to only get 1 incident point, so really happy with that.
Well, and part of your rain advantage too is our observations of you is that you managed to stay chill, and I do know that when people see moisture on the track and see it raining, it can make people panic and kind of make them drive scared. And if you can avoid that, you're well ahead of the game. So very good job here tonight, and looking forward. Let me take a quick peek here. I think I have the next week's race. Interlagos. So have you had a chance to drive at Interlagos at all? And do you have any thoughts about going to Brazil next week?
I have driven there. I've been on it in the F4 and in the Super Formula Lights, and I do like that track. I think it's a lot of fun. It'll be interesting to see how the first turn goes. I think last time we were there was a little bit of chaos, so I think for me, that's still the biggest thing. I tend to lose a lot of places on the first turn because I'm a little cautious. I'm trying to avoid issues, but usually I get them back because somebody spins out in front of me or makes a little mistake, and I'm able to get those places back. But if I had anything to improve, it would be that. So maybe that's what I should work on in practice ahead of next week.
Well, caution off the start at Interlagos is probably smart and probably plays to your strengths of avoiding problems and capitalizing on other people's errors. There's definitely going to be kerfuffles happening. So sounds like a good strategy, Embriette. Thank you so much for stopping by and chatting with us. And as we wrap up, is there anyone you would like to thank or give a shout out to today?
Yeah, I'll just shout out my husband. He's been really supportive of my racing and getting involved in this. He does an endurance race with me almost every weekend, and I think that's played a big part. He keeps saying that I'm so cool and calm, and I did not used to be at all. And I think the endurance racing and all the hours that he's put in with me doing that has really helped. So, and it's a really fun thing that we get to do together.
Yeah, too right. Nothing like a swarm of prototypes to teach you how to keep it frosty. No doubt about that. Okay, Henriette, thank you so much again for stopping by and chatting with us, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks.
All right, take care. All right, Kennen, looks like Edgar Lau is here. You can check in with him on how his track day went here in Germany.
Yeah, we got race winner Edgar Lau in with us. Started on the pole, finished on top of the podium. Absolutely blitzed the field, winning by about 16 seconds. So I know it was a pretty nice looking drive out there. I'm sure it wasn't as easy as it looked on the TV from inside the cockpit, Edgar. But how do you feel after today's race 3 in a row?
Oh, I was looking forward to a shower. You know, it's wet out on the track in the sim, and getting me a little sweaty out here because of all the slippery spots.
Yeah, and we pointed out a lot of the way the puddling was really happening around the curbs. A lot of the drivers, and especially yourself, having to run a very different line. How challenging was it compared to maybe any practice you did previously in the week and just getting ready and kind of having to avoid most of the curbs throughout the entire session?
Oh, it's a completely different driving style. Like, I have changed my lines, changed my braking points, completely different approach into turn 1 and 2 complex. That's one of the hardest part with braking and trying to get on the curb and all that kind of stuff. The hardest part is actually turn 12, where there's still a big puddle there, and if you touch it or you miss it, you're gonna go off into the gravel, and it's caught me out twice. So that's a big one.
Yeah, we saw turn 12, and especially during the race, you'll see on the broadcast, turn 3 really bit a lot of the drivers today. Is very high speed and just found themselves in the slick spot, losing the rear. So we're looking next week, Interlagos. I'm sure you're planning to go there and go for win number 4 in a row. What do you think towards Interlagos? How do you feel looking towards next week?
Looking forward to Interlagos. It's always been a fun track there, and a lot of high-speed stuff and a lot of back and forth sections, so looking forward to some good racecraft and good racing.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it too. It usually always makes for a pretty good race in the Formula 4 group, so it'll I'm sure not disappoint once again. And before we let you go, who would you like to give a shout out to, give thanks to your sponsors and so forth before we let you go?
I'm just going to do a plug here for my sponsor, Lightspeed. We just did an endurance race last weekend up at Thunderhill, and they've been supporting me, and I'd like to give them a shout out, and hopefully we'll put them on the livery on one of these cars one of these days, and bring the crew out here and play with the sim guys as well. Obviously the whole SRG team, Jason and everybody in the community has always been very welcoming, so yeah, really feel like home right now, and looking forward to more.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a pleasure getting to broadcast your races, and especially seeing the dominant performance you put on tonight. That was really top class. That was a well done job, and congratulations on the win. It's Edgar Lau, first place finisher.
Thank you very much.
All right, and once again, my Discord skills failing. But here we go. I managed to drag in Aaron Van Wagner. Aaron started in P2. McDonald got by you briefly and kind of had an unforced error that took care of itself, and you ended up finishing in P2. But man, oh man, it must have been frustrating watching Lau drive off a couple tenths here, a couple tenths there, and all of a sudden he was gone. So what was your view of the race today?
Yeah, I was really struggling in practice. I knew it was going to be wet. I was actually anticipating rain. I typically don't do very well in the wet, so I'm glad it didn't rain. I almost didn't show up tonight. I was going to just hang out and watch the Dodger game. Thank God I didn't, because they're getting absolutely crushed. And yeah, no, I was kind of surprised when I pulled off that P2. I typically run pretty good at this track, and was going against my previous times. I had like my delta for my previous times, and by the time I was getting to the end of my good qualifying lap, I was running almost as well as I had previously in the dry. So came in P2, hung there, and figured hey, maybe I got a shot at it, and kind of fell apart at the beginning. I think I was looking at the replay. It looked like you guys missed it. I actually went around right where Jose did. I tapped that green patch and at the triples, and went around, and kind of everybody was pretty good about kind of woeing up. Some of those guys in front got away, but my car kind of stopped pointing the right direction, so I just kind of kept going. Jacob got around me, and then eventually he spun out, then McDonald spun out, and I kind of had free, and then Hirsch spun out too. And then, but by that time, Edgar had gotten pretty far ahead. So, yeah, I wouldn't say frustrating. I was actually looking at the delta. I was within like 8.5 seconds of him for a while. And then I saw the delta behind me was kind of getting bigger. So I started taking it easy. I knew that unless he spun out, there was no way I was going to catch him. So kind of played it safe, kept that, 4 or 5 second delta from the guys behind me, and was able to keep it on the track the whole race. So yeah, glad I stuck around, glad I raced, and congrats to Edgar. Man, this guy's killing it.
Yeah, that's 3 in a row for him, but you're definitely no slouch out there, doing a great job, and good recovery drive. Yeah, I did miss that spin, but you kept it on the track when the people who had gotten through didn't, and so your P2 came back to you, the earned in qualifying. So yeah, we were glad to see you out there, and Aaron, thanks for stopping by and chatting with us. And as we wrap up, is there anyone you would like to thank or give a shout out to tonight?
Yeah, thanks to Jose for not killing me when I spun in front of him. That was awesome. Wish he was able to have the same recovery that I had, because I always love racing with Jose. And yeah, thanks to Jason putting this together, and thanks to you guys. You guys, another awesome week. Love watching the broadcast. It's awesome.
Yeah, and just as you were talking right there, Ron gave us the slow motion of your spin there, and I see Guyton going through and Jose avoiding you just as you're talking about that. So you'll enjoy seeing that in slow motion later, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week, man, at Interlagos.
Beautiful. Thanks, gentlemen.
All right, take care, Aaron.
You too.
All right, that was Aaron Van Wagner with a hard-earned P2 that I didn't realize was a recovery drive. But yeah, you saw that spin right there, and he hung on to make it happen. And last Kennen, we have got Diego Posada, who finished in P5 up 3.
Yeah, Diego Posada started 8th on the grid today, had a pretty good run, gets himself into the top 5. I know that's good for the points in the overall championship, but how would you describe your day, Diego? It certainly looked pretty difficult out there.
Yeah, made a couple mistakes, but I'll say it was a pretty good day overall. I like this track a lot. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, it looked like it was pretty fun out there. I know the wet curves really presented a challenge. How did you find having to manage learning a different line and really what you could use and what you couldn't when it came to the wet corners?
Yeah, it was a nice challenge for sure. Definitely where the puddles laid on this track definitely messed up like the lines I had in my head. But I think it was a good challenge. You know, like fortunately most of the track was dry, so it wasn't just battling the rain the whole time. It was just kind of picking a new line, and then you could race your race as it was dry. It was fun.
Yeah, and it looked like it kind of improved throughout the entire practice qualifying and race session. So speeds were definitely picking up all throughout the day. And then we've got ourselves certainly a dry track next week at Interlagos. How are you looking going forward into next week?
Very, 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 very much looking forward to that. I love that track. It's probably one of my favorites in real life and in this game. So yeah, it should be fun.
Awesome. Well, we will make sure to write that down and certainly circle your name to talk about and ones to look forward to next week. And before we let you go, who would you like to give a shout out to? Thanks to the sponsor or anybody before we call it a day here at the Ochersleben.
Shout out to Jason Cotcher, the owner of SRG. Oh, wait, I'm going to say that every time you ask.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody loves him. The captain, Jason Cotcher, runs everything here with the Sim Racers group. Certainly has a lot of people that helps him along the way that he loves as well. And it's put together a really good community. We're obviously blessed to have the opportunity at Slow Motion Broadcasting to get to call these races. They're a real treat every single time. So thank you, Diego. Good work on the top 5, and look forward to seeing you up front in Interlagos.
Have a good week. See you guys.
See ya.
All right, and that was Diego Posada rounding out our top 5, and you saw him down the stretch, had some big pressure behind from Navis Brashear, and Chia hangs on for the top 5, and that was some of the tightest action down the stretch in this one. But folks, I want you to go ahead and subscribe to Slow Motion Broadcasting and hit that notification icon so that you don't miss any of the action. And speaking of action, we have got a lot of it. We'll start tomorrow night with Sim Racers Group. We'll come back with SRG F4 Formula 3 competition at Olton Park. That one is going to be a wild one, same time as tonight's broadcast tomorrow, and you're not going to want to miss that. On Saturday, Weekend Warriors Formula Vs will visit Summit Point, and our Weekend Warriors double header on Sunday features Formula Fords at Brands Hatch and Spec Racer Fords. Yep, the Chicago Street Course, and you're going to want to see that for sure. And also XSLR will run at Charlotte 1 week from tonight, as we said. SRG F4 will head to Sao Paulo to mix it up at Interlagos. So that is going to wrap it up for us tonight. I am JR Gregory. On behalf of myself, my partner, Kennen Miller, our producer, Racing Ron Maunz, and everyone here at SMB, thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are, and look at the bright side. At least it ain't Monday.